All right, everybody, welcome back to J-Face Games. My name is Trent, and I'm going to be talking about something a little different today. In the past, we've been talking about RPGs, and I've just got this game on my brain that I can't get out, and so I got to talk about it because my hope with this video, this is a different playlist now, my hope with this video is that we can build a game together, and this is a card game, okay? So, first, let's give you an idea about what this card game is. If you've ever played Dominion, or if you've ever played a deck building game, then this is my idea for the evolution of a deck building game, okay? So if you've played Dominion, if you haven't played Dominion, in essence, a deck building game is that you have a hand of cards and you have a deck of cards. And with Dominion, it was a deck of 10 cards. And so you had 10 cards to start, and you would draw 5 cards from that hand, and when you were done using those cards, they all went into your discard pile, and you drew the next 5 cards, and that means you would have gone through your whole deck. But on your turn, what you're doing is you're using your cards to buy more coin, more higher level resources, and you're spending all of your coin, or whatever the case might be, to buy cards. And these cards go into your discard pile, and now what you're doing is you are building a deck. That deck has a purpose, so that the next time you shuffle your deck and you draw 5 new cards, you're going to have one of these new cards in it, and it's going to have some sort of purpose, with the goal being to accumulate the most victory points. This was really innovative when it came out a long time back. Dominion was the first one that did it, and why it was so innovative, because it kind of took away some of that. You get to feel like you were doing a card game, because you are doing a card game, but you get to feel like you were building the deck in the moment, as opposed to, there are a lot of card games where you build decks in your free time, and some people love that, some people hate it. So instead of having to build a magic deck or build some sort of deck, you would be building the deck in the moment, and sort of what was cool about it is you could see what the other players, their strategy was. You could see which cards they're buying up, right? Really neat idea. The other strategy to kind of eliminate that wanting to build a deck at home was Keyforge, and I've talked about that at length in this video, or in this channel. So the Ascension, or the evolution, I just said it, but the evolution of this deck building game was a game called Ascension, where instead of having this tableau of these are the 10 possible cards you could buy, and we all have the same 10 possible cards, and we're going to build from that, Ascension, which I'm showing here a picture of Hero Realms actually, but because there's been a lot of iterations of this, is that you would have a shared tableau, right? So there was this 5 card splash, and this player would be buying from this splash, and this player would be buying from this splash. So this was Ascension, and Hero Realms, and Star Realms, and there's a lot of games that use this scenario. What's nice about it is it's easier to set up. I think that you can have a much more broad card pool, which makes it more interesting because who knows what the hell is coming out. But some of the issues with it is that you could definitely feel in a given game that it was like unfair. You know, like if you're playing Star Realms and you know that game, there was a specific card in Star Realms that was called a base. And in essence, it's a static card that would stay out in front of, once you bought one, it could stay out in front, and it would give you extra powers. And if one player just kept getting lucky and the bases were coming up when they were able to draw, then it definitely felt the other player was behind, you know? So that was kind of tricky. So that brings us to, hopefully, at this point in time, if you know what a deck builder is, great, because we're going to talk about some more stuff. But if this is still like, then maybe go look up some of these games and kind of read the rules of them, or watch Rodney talk about how it's played in one of these videos, in one of his videos on YouTube. My thought is that I love this idea, but I also love the idea of building a deck, building a deck on my own. Now, granted, I kind of navigate more towards something like Marvel Champions deck building, where you have bunches of cards that kind of come together, as opposed to you're choosing every individual card. Like I never played the Star Wars Fantasy Flight Games deck builder, but it was the same thing. It'd be like a 6-card theme, and you would put like 6 of these 6-card themes together. So you're making 6 decisions to put these cards together to make a 36-card deck, as opposed to 36 decisions, because that's a little much. I don't have time for that, unfortunately. I got kids. So with this, my thought is that you take this deck builder evolution and now you go the next step. And this is what I hope people might get excited about on here. And that next step to me is this idea that I build a deck in advance. And that deck is 50 cards, right? Something like that. Now, I personally would lean towards like, you know, there are 10 card stacks that are themes, and I put 5 of those themes together, something like that. I'm not sure. You know, that's where we can talk about this. But then I have a faction deck that I choose also, which is 15 cards, or 10 to 15 cards. So I've got 10 to 15 card faction deck, and I've got this 50 card resource deck, right? And the other player does the same thing. Now, this is gonna look just like Ascension or Hero Realms, where what I have is my 15 card faction deck is going to be my starting deck, right? That I'm going to build off of. And that faction deck is very theme based. You can think of it also in Marvel Champions, how you have your 15 card hero deck, that's the hero deck, right? So same thing, the faction deck is not changeable, right? It's a static deck that if you ever play that faction, these are your 15 starting cards. But then what happens is, so now when I see what faction that player's playing, I already know what their 15 cards are. So I'm like, okay, I know what their starting theme is, okay? I don't know what their 50 card resource deck is, and they don't know what my 50 card resource deck is. But what's happening is that while I'm playing, when my setup is, I've got my 15 card starter, and then I've got this 50 card resource deck, and that becomes my flop of 5 cards. So imagine just like here, there's these 5 cards that come out. Well, I have 5 cards that comes out for me out of my resource deck, and he has 5 that comes out for him, right? And what I love about this idea is that it's gonna feel like a deck builder, right? That 50 card resource deck for me could have 4 different strategies in it, and depending on the cards I'm buying from it, are gonna be changing how I might be playing. But what's also really cool is that the other player is going to be reacting based on what I'm buying. They're gonna see what my possible cards are in the future that are coming out, and they're gonna go, oh my gosh, he's pushing for this, or he's pushing for that. And they might be able to react based on it and buy cards from their row. Not to mention that now when you're thinking about like resource management, instead of like hitting someone's resources and having certain resources to mess with, or what you're doing is you're messing with their tableau, right? I've got this 5 card flop. You could target cards in there and attack cards in there, okay? Now what I wanted to do here is this is where I've kind of been just jotting down random ideas. And at this point in time, I like the idea of the theme being sort of a steampunky thematic, I think. And the objective is, if you think of a world where there's lots of floating islands, the objective is to get to these floating islands and capture them as resource points, right? So there's a exploration component to this game, right? And so that brings us to, let me see which one it is. I think it's this one, Lcg Deck Builder. And so that brings us to the idea that in essence, there's 4 different types of cards, or 4 different types of cards. You have units, right? You're gonna have unit cards. You're gonna have event cards. You're gonna have tech cards, and then you're gonna have exploration cards, or the islands, okay? And the idea being that the islands are going to be in your resource deck, and so X amount of that 50 cards have to be island cards. And they're gonna come out in your tableau, and you're gonna be able to try to, one of the things you're gonna try and do is capture them, right? And they're gonna be hard to capture. But the thing is, if it comes out in your tableau, the opponent might be able to capture it as well, okay? But they're gonna be hard to capture. And it comes down to just resource management in terms of you're either attacking, which you're attacking the enemy units, you're attacking the enemy themselves, you are purchasing cards from your tableau, you're attacking the actual player versus his hand versus his tableau versus any units he has on the board space. And then you have this exploration where you're trying to explore those locations. Now tech is a third sort of like, I wanted to have different victory conditions. So maybe you could tech out, maybe you could kill, like Civ games. You could either kill the other opponent outright, you could tech out, right? You get a certain tech score, or you can explore X amount of, islands, right? Those are the three sort of win conditions I thought of. And so the way you would tech out is that, in essence, you would have, there would be certain tech cards that come out that have to be purchased via a tech resource, a separate resource. And at any point in time, if you have X amount of tech in your tableau and in your hand, so there's a little bit of like a, that net runner, like I don't know what he has, sort of that bluffing thing where maybe you notice that I keep 3 cards in my hand and I just keep discarding 2 other ones and I keep trying to draw up because maybe those are 3 tech cards and I'm trying to get a certain amount of tech score. So I like that idea of being this sort of surprise victory. That's sort of your like surprise victory is the tech route possibly. So that's the idea. That's the overview broad idea, right? That it's a twist on the deck builder, that both opponents come with their own resource decks that they are buying from and you're watching them tech up and you're trying to adapt. There was a game called Codex by Sirlin Games, and Codex was in essence trying to be a real-time strategy game, and it succeeded. It was a really great game. And part of that was there was this deck building mechanic where you didn't see what they were putting in their deck, but once it came out, you had time to try and react. Like, oh crap, they've gone flying machines. I'm gonna have to get some sort of, aerial defense or some sort of guns or turrets. So it was a really fun game. So if you have questions, please leave them in the comments. I'm gonna go ahead and put a link to this page in the comments. And what you're gonna see here is there's a lot of jib jabber, right? But the main thing would be this one, which I think is like the overview of all the mechanics, right? And then this one, which is the sort of, I'm trying to distill it into the actual like theme and sort of like the rule book, right? I'm gonna leave comments on this also. So you can put comments in here. So when I share this thing in my Notion page, I'm gonna leave comments on so that technically you'll be able to put comments in here. I think I already have an artist that I'd like to get involved. He's a friend of mine. And so at this point in time, it's more like, let's talk through this game. Let's figure out what mechanics we think are cool. Let's start to build out the cards themselves. Let's get a tabletop simulator demo version going. And let's see if we can build up enough of a prototype to possibly kickstart it. Who knows? So anyways, it's a different video today. Like I like all games, so it's not just gonna be RPG stuff. I hope to get more RPG things up soon. Sorry for the hiatus, just been busy, and I hope to get some more videos up by next week. Have a good one.